They got married in, I guess, 71, Jody and Sammy. And when they had me, Jody's wife had a problem with it.
Ex-wife?
No. He never got divorced from his wife, so Mom and his marriage wasn't really legal. Well, it is a birthright. I mean, I don't joke when I call country royalty a real thing, you know. I am born into it.
You were going to be a preacher.
Well, yeah.
This podcast might be about 3 or 4 hours.
Ended up having an affair with a monk up the street at the Catholic college. I know this doesn't sound healthy, but
Let me
it was
write
just...
that down.
I was a hooker for a while. Now, Frank says I wanted to be the first openly gay country singer in country music. I don't remember saying that. I wouldn't put it past me. And there was Keith Gaddis. It's like, hey, man, what are you doing? And that clicked something special.
But when one outrageous story is enough to have a deep impact on somebody's life, let's talk about the abuse. That's one thing that could be huge. Then let's talk about the coming out and getting kicked out of your family. That's another thing. All of these situations on their own could make a psychologist rich. At some point you go, hey, man, are you bullshitting me?
Stories bring lessons, laughter, unforgettable experiences, and memories that far outlive the storytellers themselves. Great stories happen to those who can tell them. This is the Jackin' Around podcast, hosted by two-time Academy of Country Music Award winner and master storyteller Jack Ingram. In these open dialogue podcasts, Jack digs into the personal stories of a wide variety of special guests, including your favorite music, sports, and entertainment personalities. And now, to introduce today's guest, here is podcast producer Matt Pivato.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy Yates, for that intro. Welcome to the second episode of the Jackin' Around podcast. Sitting here in front of me is Mr. Waylon Payne. Waylon comes from country music royalty. His namesake and godfather is Waylon Jennings. His dad is the late Jody Payne, who played guitar for Willie Nelson for 35 years. His late mother, Sammy Smith, was one of the first female outlaw country music singers, best known for her crossover hit Help Me Make It Through the Night in 1971. She subsequently won a CMA award and a Grammy and inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1998. Waylon has released 2 records, one in the early 2000s to most recently in September 2020. He's also been on about a dozen movies, including playing Jerry Lee Lewis in the Johnny Cash movie Walk the Line. Before I toss it to Jack, some quick housekeeping notes. Please like, share, and give this podcast a big old 5-star rating provided below in the description. Our links to social media and the website, jackingaroundpodcast.com, plus more information about Waylon and the host. Speaking of the host, take it away, Jack.
Jacking around. Jack Ingram and Waylon Payne. Welcome.
That's badass. Does that happen every time you pull that trigger?
Sometimes it's a little more magical than others.
Really? I'm going to need to get one of those guns.
So the name of your new record is, hey, man, we're rolling, right? The name of your new record is what?
Blue Eyes, the Harlot, the Queer, the Pusher, and Me.
Blue Eyes.
The Harlot.
And yours are kind of green.
Yeah.
Do they change colors?
Sometimes.
Mine do too.
Yeah. When I get, you don't want to see them yellow, green.
That's jaundice. Yeah.
It's when I've been like eating too much ass.
That was back. That was back in 97.
Yeah, does that sound wrong to say?
I'm sorry, did he say what?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah, no, what was that again? Your eyes get yellow?
Sometimes, like yellow-green, like with the gold splecks, you know?
Oh, no.
They're hazel is mostly what they are.
What is hazel?
Brownish, greenish, sometimes blue. If you're wearing like a certain color, they'll look blue, but they're not blue.
My dad has 2 different color eyes.
That's badass. That's pretty special. One's blue and one's green.
One's blue and one's brown. It's a trip.
Your dad's pretty cool.
He is cool.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes get red.
Well.
But that's not from eating ass.
No. I don't eat ass. That's
so
just a
eyes,
joke,
the
man.
Harlot,
the queer, the pusher, and me.
And the pusher and me. What constituted which came first?
That man, that is the last line of the last song on the album of a song called "Oh Blue Eyes," and in 2007, 6, right after Mama died, I moved back to Nashville, got a publishing deal with Frank Liddell, and had gotten pretty strung out on meth in California.
Right.
And by 2005 and into 6, Ty and he was gone. And so I kind of came back to Nashville.
Ty, the country singer that you didn't marry, but
Well, we were
partnered
together
up
for a
with.
minute. Yeah. He kind of, whatever. That's fucking, yeah. So he was
I just
gone,
want to
but
make sure we can tag him so we can motherfuck him as much as you need to.
blow it up. Man, here's the thing. I figure that whole time in my life, look, there was stuff boiling to the surface that I really wasn't probably prepared for, And
How old were you that time?
I was in my 30s, 30, 31, 32, 31 and 32 and 33, because Mom died at 33. Well, I just got my record deal was when it happened. So I got my record deal. And
It's new record deal.
this was back in 2002. This was the
Oh,
Drifter.
when the Drifter came
I
out.
just got the Drifter record deal. And there was about a 2-year, year and a half period in between getting the deal and the record coming out. And in between that time, I was living in California and I happened to meet Ty. And he had gotten dropped from his label.
I was on Sony at that time.
Were you?
There was a lot of talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was a ton of talk. Well, there was a lot of talk in New York at Universal Republic and Avery's office. They had just signed me and put a lot of money into me. And then the next thing they knew, I'm hooked up with this known
This
addict.
blacklisted
Yeah.
singer.
And I didn't know, I'd been partying with my dad for quite a few years. We bonded over cocaine and booze and speed and music. That's
Right.
just what his deal was. And I thought that being raised in Nashville and being we live a life.
Mhm.
We're not strangers to drugs.
Did you just think that was part of it?
I could always take it or leave it. I mean, I was an epic partier, but I also, it wasn't anything that really ever took control of me. But it kind of, I guess it was kind of snowballing over the years, I mean, it wasn't like I was always the most dependable person. There were years of my life when I would see, well, for example, you and I have been in each other's lives in and out for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
There were times when I would see you when I was probably drinking, when I was working with Shelby or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or there were times when I'd see you when I was partying too much on coke, hanging out with Jody or whatever. And then there were times when I would see you when I was just on other things. I went through the gamut.
Right.
But when I got to Nashville, it kind of took a different animal. I started injecting it. And
Why was that, you think? You think it was because the circumstances changed where it's like,
I think
The
I
whole
was
time
so
before
sad.
you were-
I think I was so sad over. Look, I had lost everything I'd ever worked for. I lost my record deal, which was the pinnacle of everything that a kid strives for like us. I'd lost my anchor, which was my mom, and that was. It doesn't matter what you go through in your life. It was fucking completely devastating. I was not. And I was, quote unquote, married, if you will, to this dude. And in the end, after we had split up and everything, we saw each other, a year or so after it had happened and ended up, hanging out. And you know what? It doesn't matter because it doesn't matter.
right.
It was a time in my life that thank God's over. And it's the reason I don't date. You know what I mean? It really is. Because, I honestly believed in it, like anybody would go through a relationship, and it's stupid, loving somebody and given, I carried guilt around for years because he took me away from my mom, as she was dying. And
Was your mom always on board with your lifestyle?
no, we were
By the
best
way,
buddies.
cheers.
Cheers to you,
It's
pal.
great to see you, man.
Good to see you. We were best buddies growing up. I think it's fair to say I might have been the light of her eye or the apple of her eye, whatever you call that shit. I adored her.
Yeah.
She was the most magnificent thing I ever saw, and I always knew there was something different about her. It was just I just knew that she was something special. I didn't know how to hang out with her, but when when I had my coming out experience, if you will, it kind of happened in some family drama. her brother had been pulling some shit with me for years, and when it all came out at a counseling session at my Baptist college, the family called me a liar and threw me out, and he went on to be a deacon, somewhere in a different town. And,
Really?
yeah, and my mom for a good period of time, for about 4 or 5 years, was like, you can't, we don't want anything to do with you. And if you come to my house, my husband he'll shoot you on sight.
Good Lord.
It's kind of hard to hear from your mom.
Especially one that you.
Well,
You
there was,
idolize so
there
much.
was, she was a darling, but there was a lot of torture in her life too.
Well, and at
You
that
know?
point, we're lucky that we grew up, that we're able to be adults now, knowing how that all played out for guys who had to come up for their family. And the only reason their families did what they had, gave their sons the experience that you got was basically, man, we know now on the right side of history, it was just ignorance.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't happen now.
No, they get there's that whole scapegoat that really grates my nerves. Oh, they did the best they could. Bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe they did. I don't really, I don't think a lot about it anymore because it's gone. But however, it had so much to do with the reason I was plying myself with out of my
With
mind,
anything that would
numbing
make you
drugs.
numb.
Yeah.
Did you and your mom reconcile?
We did. We reconciled about 4 or 5 years after. Shelby Lynn had a great deal to do with that. I had, when I was living in Nashville, I got to Nashville probably 94, 95.
Yeah.
When did I meet you in Nashville?
I started
Many
going up there in
many years ago.
in
we met.
95.
Yeah.
When I got a manager at I knew that Joe Ely was managed. Joe Ely and I level were managed
Many,
by
many
Ken Levitin.
moons ago, pal.
Yeah, man. So I
Um,
walked in there and knocked on doors.
yeah. Well, Shelby took me in, and that's what I had heard all my life, from my mama. Mama used to live with Loretta when she first came to town, and Dottie West. I mean, they all, took turns babysitting me and throughout my life. And Nashville was it was always a family community.
Mhm.
It was a family. It was just, it just never seemed like anything else.
Right.
And
You grew up in people's guitar cases.
yeah. And
How invested was your dad?
well, Jody, I met Jody was never in my life through the first part of it because mother hid me away. She changed my name. She put me with her brother and his wife and down in Vidor, Texas. And I stayed there for many, many years. And until the late 70s, early 80s, I lived with my mom for a little bit in Newcastle after she had a second string of records. But Daddy was, he was not talked well about.
Was it unmentionable or was it just not a
It
part?
wasn't unmentionable. Whenever Will would be on TV, Bobby Dean would call me into the living room, or I would be watching because I always watched the country specials.
Right.
Bobby Dean would always point out that, well, there's your father, and I just didn't. I never could see it. I never could see it. In my mind, my mother. Okay, so my mother was fucking outrageously incredible. She was like a fucking out of sight. And in my
what way?
mind,
Just talent wise?
no, she was just an amazing woman. She was beautiful. I never heard anybody sing like her in my life. And it's not just because I was her kid, maybe it was, but she just was a different soul. And she didn't know how to deal with me, I don't think. And she put me where she thought I would be safe because she had work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But Daddy was not an option. He was not an option, and wasn't for many years. Now, when I got older, like 7 or 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, Mama would occasionally, every year or two, come back off the road. Say, hey, well, I saw your father this weekend, and I've got his phone number and his address if you'd ever like to, You know, but I didn't. I never connected that as, oh, that's your father. My father, my father was like fucking Robert Redford. My father was fucking 18 feet tall and beautiful and handsome and was just somewhere waiting for me to find him.
Right. It was a fantasy.
He was responsible. He was a caretaker. He was there to make things better. And, you know, that's what I expected, because my mother was so incredible, and I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that she had bedded down with this fucking guy, you know?
So you built it up in your brain, built it up in your head.
Maybe.
When I meet
you know?
him,
yeah,
things
I'd
are gonna
always
be
just
changing.
assume that, you know how it was? Here's how it was. I grew up on records, right?
Mhm.
When I was 3 or 4, there were 2 records in my life. One was Help Me Make It Through the Night, and the other was a Bobby Gentry record called Courtyard. It was on a 45. And in that song, he said he'd build me a courtyard with a lacy iron gate. Have you ever heard it?
Mm.
Beautiful song. It was on the flip side of Fancy. It's about this guy who's building this courtyard for this person, and he loves her so much. So he builds her this place to stay that's supposed to be perfection, and he would come if he could, but he couldn't. And so whenever I'd hear Help Me Make It Through the Night, I knew that was my mom. And for some reason, whenever I'd hear Bobby Gentry sing The Courtyard, I was like, that must be my dad somewhere not able to get to me because, you know, I don't know. I just never could explain it. But when I met my father,
It's almost like a dream where it's
Yeah.
like
yeah.
he's reaching out for you, but he just can't do
Yeah.
it. No harm.
Finally, when I was in high school, I took her up on it for some reason. I'm not sure why I did. But I finally met Jody when I was 16 and started hanging out with Willie and Jody a little bit. I still couldn't because I was a preacher. I was in the Baptist church, and it was, you know, I wasn't supposed to like that stuff, but I did. And
Imagine that.
yeah. And
You were going to be a preacher.
well, yeah, you know,
This podcast might be about 3-4 hours.
it's a long, twisted story, and a lot of it's fucked up and weird, but it's all true.
Yeah.
You know, when my aunt didn't really like my mother. She didn't like my mother.
Is this
My mother's brother's wife, the lady that raised me.
the
Yeah.
sister-in-law of the brother who
No, the wife of the brother that
wasn't
Yeah.
acting right around?
wasn't acting right with me. Yeah. My mother, when I was,
We'll have subtitles that go.
yeah.
This is what he was doing.
Diagrams, if you'd like. She put me with them from the time I was 2 months old. Because 72, I was born. It was the year she got the Grammy. She had to work, and that's what she wanted to do. So she did it. Put me with them. They raised me as their own all through my life until the time I was 18, minus a couple of years, you know, a year here with mom or a year there with mom when she'd get married to somebody, or, you know, but they were the stable kind of family in my life. And
And when you hooked up with Jody, was it on tour bus?
well,
or
it was, he came to Frisco. I wrote him a letter. This was how cool Jody was. I wrote a letter. He got it on a Thursday, I think, and was in Frisco from Alabama Friday afternoon. He was there. And he was not at all what I was expecting. At first, you know, it just was not.
Robert Redford.
No, it wasn't
He
Robert
was-
Redford.
Shut my
It was
mouth.
not Robert Redford. But we started hanging out, and you know, I kind of was like, well, okay, if this is my dad, well, then I must try to get to know him. But it just was not something that ever came easy.
Was it fighting or was it just a ship?
I think it was. I think that
Was it like this or was it like this?
it was this, but it was also this with my mother's memory. I looked a whole lot like my mom when I was young, and I acted a whole lot like her, I'm sure. At least that's what he used to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he might have had some unresolved feelings with her that he never got a chance to resolve. And then here comes the son that he probably really didn't he had other things to
It's
do.
hard to own up.
Yeah.
Did they have a long relationship? Or was it just kind of?
Oh God. Well,
Sorry, man.
No, it's good. This is good. She and
So
they got married.
This
This
is all for
yeah. Hey,
you.
this is so great. They got married in I guess 71. Jody and Sammy, and had me. And when they had me, Jody's wife had a problem with it.
Ex-wife?
No. He never got divorced from his wife, so mom and his marriage wasn't really legal, and they had it.
So we're building this thing on the rock.
It was pretty crazy. And then him and Jimmy Day stole all of her band equipment one night and went to Mexico and bought speed with it, and it kind of put her out of business. So that was the end of Jody, and he went to work for Willie after that.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a lot of speed, Daddy and I guess Mama and the Cats back then in the day. It was the thing.
Well, that was the thing.
Yeah. They didn't see each other again for a long time. Well, it's weird because there are TV shows where like Willie will do a show with Sammy, and
Right.
Sammy will open the show, and she's doing her thing, and Willie and Mama are like all over each other singing, and
I think I've
then,
seen some of those.
yeah, and then Willie comes on with, and there's Jody over there in the corner, like going, and here's Mom over sitting on Mickey's lap, flirting with everybody, and this was really uncomfortable. But they never were together again, and.
Wow.
Daddy never came up off of much of anything except towards the last.
So when y'all started hanging out when you're 16,
it was kind of weird because I was a teenager and my dad was a rock star, if you will.
Yeah.
I took a couple of friends to Billy Bob and quickly got kicked out. And
were you playing music at the time?
no. Well, I was singing in church.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could do. When I started showing an interest in music, my aunt was very quick to kind of nipped that in the bud. She considered my mom an easy woman, and because she was a Baptist,
Right.
it helped me make it through the night when it was released was quite provocative and was
Still
banned
is.
in a lot of churches and banned in a lot of radio stations, and a lot of preachers decided that they would talk about that sinning woman, and it kind of caused some embarrassment to her churchy, yeah. So it was just always touch and go. They would love her when she was there, and when she was gone, they would remind me of what a whore she was, or
what
like
a problem it was.
she wasn't responsible. Look, how much she loves you. She's put you here with us, and kind of.
In hindsight, only gives us the ability to go. It's funny that they were so down on that song,
But
what it
yeah,
represented, but yet they were probably also singing in that same service, "Lord Help Me, Jesus,"
oh yeah,
by the same author.
yeah, or One Day at a Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were hanging out with your dad at 16, you said that y'all bonded over. some
Well,
shit
that didn't come till I was about 18. So like at 16, we tried to hang out. I was a problem. So he sent me back. You're not going to hang out with me. That's not going to be this way. So we kind of, I went to Christmas once, and, we tried, but it wasn't really anything that was kind of,
It was just stop and start.
that was my thing. When the family expelled me, and I didn't have anywhere else to go, I called Daddy, and I was like, listen, this is what's been going on in my life. This is what's happened to me. I don't know what to do.
So you came out at 18,
Oh, yeah.
and they told you to get out.
Well, I got expelled from college, and I had been, there was some abuse going on by from my uncle, and I had been dealing with all of it my freshman year in college because I was a religion major, and I really believed I was going to save the world and be a preacher and God, and I sang gospel music, Amy Grant, and I was like trying to be the next contemporary Christian singer. I was going to save the world, and
What's his name? Chapman.
Stephen Curtis Chapman.
Yeah.
God damn, he was great. Gary Chapman too. He was awesome.
Are they brothers?
No, maybe.
Like Sammy and Connie?
I love Sammy and Connie. They're great brothers. No, but so I was at college.
Were you kidding about Gary?
No. What about Gary?
You loved him?
Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. I love his singing. Yeah. I listened to him, and see, when I couldn't listen to country music and I couldn't sing country music, I moved to the closest thing I could find, which was called back then this new thing called contemporary Christian.
Right.
And it was like Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant and Stephen Curtis Chapman, Gary Chapman.
For God.
They were making it was good music.
Yeah.
It was like as close to rock and roll as we could get, I mean, that was the sound of the 80s, and it was rocking. So I could sing in church, and that was okay. So I would sing for the Lord, and so naturally that led to getting a call for whatever it was I was called to do. And so I was at college trying to, do that, be a preacher. Be
You
a
feel
good
like
kid.
you had the calling.
Thought so, yeah. And
Just as a bit of a
well, I had a fascination with boys all of a sudden, and I was out of the house for the first time in my life, and there wasn't there. I mean, you kids bloom, people bloom into what men or women they become, and
yeah, that's what you're supposed to do at 18, 19, 20.
yeah, and so I ended up having an affair with a monk up the street at the Catholic college. I know this doesn't sound healthy, but
Let me write that down. Sure.
And they caught me. The school. It was a long story. There was closed circuit TV in the place where we hung out, and they got back to the Oklahoma Baptist. They flipped out, and they were like, called me into the dean's office, and it was all in the same weekend that I had gone to this counselor, and told him, I was like, look, I've been going through some shit because I'm a preacher, but I think I might be gay, and I've been having a sexual relationship for years with a family member that was wrong, and I've been in this situation, and I don't know what to do. And he was like, well, you need to go tell your mother everything that you've just told me, and she'll know what to do. And so, like an idiot, I fucking listened to him because he's an adult, And so I did. I went and talked to Mom, and Mom fucking flipped out. But she didn't really let me know at that moment. She did this kind of thing, and she gave me this choice. She was like, this is your choice. You're going to have to deal with this yourself. You can either fucking come up off this secret that you've told me, and it'll destroy the family, or you can forget about it and you can move on with your life like I did.
In the positive way.
Yeah, like
Positive way.
Well, you forget it ever happened.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. It's the and
move on with your fake life.
Yeah. You just stick it down inside and never have to feel it, and then everything's great. And we'll talk about it on cigarettes at Christmas or whatever,
Right.
So I mean, that was my mom. I mean, again, I trusted her. Okay, I'll think about this, and I'll probably force this down inside, and we never have to mention this again. Well, she never gave me that chance. She jumped the gun the next morning and fucking was like, and so the whole family
She started calling people, and
she called my aunt and uncle and was like, this is what he's saying. And it kind of had gotten through because I had told a family member,
Yeah.
Go ahead,
caller.
Yeah.
Did you tell her at that same meeting, at that same instance, that same time, that her brother
Yeah.
had been? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to swallow.
Well, I mean, that was the reason I went to tell her. That was what I told her. I didn't tell her I was gay. I mean, that came the next, day when I got expelled from college. They just kind of threw me under the bus after that. It was kind of a lot to divulge in a weekend. I can understand, and the next morning it was like everything just fucking skyrocketed. It was like she called. Well, my Aunt Yvonne was the first call, like 7:00 the next morning. And she's like, well, your mother's called and told us what you're saying about your uncle. And we just can't believe it. The love we've given you. We never want to see you again.
Okay, so
until you're ready to say this didn't happen, you're never welcome in this house again. And I'm writing a letter to say more. I was like, okay. And so I called my mom.
Well, hold on. What did he say about it?
I never talked to him again.
Okay.
Ever. Well, one time on the phone, but that was like a short conversation. I never saw him again.
Was it basically 2 words? Fuck off?
I was really, really pissed, and I really, about a year had gone by, or 6 months had gone, maybe 3 months, I don't know. Some time had gone by, and I was like, this dude has really fucked my life up. And I did make that phone call, and I was like, when he answered the phone, I don't know, I'm not sure what I said, but I was like, you need to fucking come up off some shit. And he's like, I don't need to say shit to you. And it was a big deal, and hung up, and it caused fucking so much strife, and it tore the family apart. It tore the family apart, and the only reason I'm able to talk to some of them now is because everybody's dead,
Right.
And my mama came to my defense before she died. With her dying breath, man, she knew what had happened, and she went out there and fucking made things right, and then went home and died.
Right.
But in the course of that morning, I called my mom. I'm like, well, this is what Aunt Yvonne. She said, well, I feel the same way. Until you're ready to say this didn't happen, we have no room for you. That's it. And it seemed like within an hour, I was in the dean's office, and the dean, was like, it's come to our attention that you're a homosexual, and you're expelled. You need to be off of the campus by the end of the day. Have your things out. And thank you very much. And it was a Baptist college, it was a private college, so it was right there in the rule book. And
So you're what, 19?
18.
18.
Yeah.
Did you feel like a balloon?
I didn't know
with
what to
helium just
do.
got
I didn't.
cut
I mean,
off?
I knew. I had known and been carrying for years the knowledge that if that fucking secret that the family, I had known that it would, if it ever came out, it was going to fucking. And there I was in that situation, and in a matter of about 12 hours, just absolutely everything was gone, and I was just a baby. I mean, I wasn't a baby,
Yeah,
but I
you were.
was,
You're a baby.
and
Let's
so
get brass tacks. Where did you sleep that night?
I stayed at some friend's house that lived about 20 miles outside of Shawnee.
And were your friends aware of your life, like that you were?
Well, it was one of the guys had taken me to my first gay bar a couple of or 6 months earlier. It was a 18 and over place for kids to go hang out, young kids who were coming out or whatever. Oklahoma City was a very, very secure place. It had a very secure little community.
Underground closet community?
Well, it wasn't closeted. They had a very strong gay community in Oklahoma City. It was on 39th and Penn, and there was a group of there's little when that first couple of weeks I stayed with this little drag queen named Carrie. She was 17 years old and took me in for a while, and
She meaning he.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a he. I was a hooker for a while during there, because I could make money, it was just it was
How
a weird
dangerous was
transition. It was crazy. It was weird, but I mean, and I made peace with it. I had been doing it for years in a way, and so it was just
Another role, different form of payment.
yeah. I was kind of disappointed in the choice of selection, if you will. I was like, this certainly isn't like I thought it would be. Nothing ever was,
Yeah.
But I finally made it out of that situation, and somehow ended up down in Dallas and started driving a parts truck for this Volkswagen dealership.
Mhm.
And
Writing songs or just hanging out?
no, I wasn't writing yet, but shortly after I got to Dallas and got that job working for that parts truck, they had an audition coming through town for Opryland.
Oh, wow.
And Opryland was opening a new theme park in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And I worked in the country music show. I went and auditioned for the job, and I got it.
Did you read it in the paper or what?
Heard it on the radio.
Yeah.
Heard it on the radio. Went and auditioned. Used my mama's name, even though we weren't talking at all. But I got that audition. I mean, I wrote it in great big letters. Sammy, in case of emergency, Sammy Smith. you know,
man.
and watched their eyes all light up. And I got that job, and that's where I started cutting my teeth. Was Opryland.
Doing what? Singing what kind of, like what was the act?
It was country music, and it was a country music review. I played Ernest Tubb and Roy Acuff and Ricky Skaggs, and we danced and did the jigs and
Did you do the whole, I'm walking the floor over you?
6 times a day, 6 days a week. Yeah,
Did you enjoy it?
loved it. Learned my craft. Learned how to work a mic. Learned how to work
Had
a
you been
stage.
on stage before that?
I had been doing a little bit, but no, this was my other than church.
Yeah.
And so this was the real deal. We were getting paid. We made like $400 every couple of weeks, but that was
That's
a lot of money,
Yeah.
back then. And
Was it a traveling thing? Or
no, we were right there in San Antonio.
Where'd
I
you
moved
live?
down. I lived down in Olmos Park.
Yeah.
Off of man, I wish I could remember the street.
It's beautiful down there.
Yeah, I lived in this little, Adobe 4-plex, right behind that little pharmacy, and almost park with the soda shop.
Yeah.
I lived right across
by
the
the,
street from there.
Right by the Dos, what was the name of that Mexican food? The first fast food, Taco Cabana
Mhm.
came after it. It was Dos.
I don't.
It was a
remember
Mexican
that.
food place, right? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
The Opryland.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for 2 years, and the second year, every year they would pick 2 or 3 of the cast members, and they would fly them to Nashville, and they would let them play the Grand Ole Opry. So keep in mind, I was not talking to Mama during this time. We were on the outs. We would kind of touch base every now and then when the important stuff would happen. She was not totally gone, but it was, you know what I mean? It was just, we had a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the second year they picked me and called her up. It's like, Mama, guess what? I'm playing how did you get booked on the Opry? I was like, ugh. So I did the Opry. Johnny Russell.
Hold on. When you said that to your mom, was she?
Well, she said, don't go up there and flame on, because they were all still convinced I was like this flaming homosexual, and I was out in San Francisco, like making pornos. And
So her take was, don't come out there and flame on.
yeah, don't go out there and embarrass me and be a fag.
Did she say flame on? Because that's pretty.
No,
bad.
those were her words. Son, don't go out there and flame on.
Is it like a saying?
It's what
That's
she said. Don't go
Wow.
out there and flame on. I'm like, all right. It's like, I'm gonna whatever. Can I sing your song? Sang the piss out of it. Got an encore. It's on Johnny Russell's show. And
Did they introduce you?
oh yeah, they
as
knew
Sammy?
exactly. And Sammy and Jody's son. Yes, sir. I've ridden it as I'm proud of it. Even though they weren't in my life, I've never not respected that lineage and
Yeah.
that work that I sacrificed my mother for that.
It's amazing that you were able to do that through all of the. It's not really twists and turns. It's more of like your life got tied into a knot, and it's amazing that you were able to keep that perspective of the respect for the compartmentalize it almost about this is.
Well, not only did I do that, but I was convinced that if I had lost my family for something as trivial as who I was never going to not be comfortable with who I was again. And, I never have. I've never had a problem with it. I've never not been able to be myself, and I've never had people give me shit for it.
Mhm.
It's just always been the way it was. But I was there for a couple years. Johnny Russell had me on his show at the Opry. A couple weeks later, the phone rang in the green room, and it was him. And he was like, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but you need to think about coming to Nashville. Got some people I'd like you to meet. And so my contract was up, and I packed the car and I went to Nashville.
What were you driving?
A Suzuki Swift hatchback, loaded to the gills.
And you made it up there.
Made it up there, stayed on some friends' couches, met John Doris. Nothing really happened.
This is what, 95? Yeah.
95. Started singing on Broadway. Nobody sang down there back then. It was
Before it had the second coming of.
well, yeah. Well, this was back when there were porn stores and Mama Joe's and the Turf and all those cool old places where all of the old bands hung out. But it was mostly junkies and prostitutes and shit like that is dangerous. People would get cut up, they'd say, but I never had a problem.
Right.
I loved it. I cut my teeth down there. I mean, the first bar I ever walked into down there, the Troubadours were playing, and I sang all day. I would sing. I think I took you from one end of that town bar street to the other one afternoon, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And that was just the thing that we did back then.
Yeah.
And it was not long after that I met Shelby. And I met Frank. I met Frank back then as well. Frank was one of the first people I ever met.
How'd
when
you
I
run
came to
into
Nashville.
him? So okay, so now that we've cut through cut through the weeds of all that other stuff, which is part and parcel to how you got. But like, so then you decide, okay, I'm moving to Nashville. I'm a singer.
I'm gonna be a star.
At that point, you had dropped the whole idea of being a preacher.
Oh well, I dropped the whole idea of being a preacher when I got expelled from college. That was done.
Now, were you pissed about that, or was it more like
It was
that's
more
not
of
happen?
it was more of a wait a minute. I've been living in this family for 18 years, and they've been telling me every day that there's nothing I can do that will make them stop loving me, and there is nothing that can change God's love for me, and yet it's all bullshit. This was all bullshit because they're liars. They've turned their back on me, and I didn't even do anything, and these guys are full of shit.
But I've known you a long time, and it seems like you never turned your back or got mad at God.
I mean, I don't know that it was his fault. I was mad at him for a minute.
But you've never
found peace with it, you know?
Yeah, like you've always seemed to be a believer.
I mean, he's something that I've always believed in, so it's something that you can't really shake. I just don't know what you know what I mean? I don't know what it means now.
Mm-hmm.
Like song content, there's songs that I talk about God in a lot of things, but I don't know if it's what I believe still or if it's just so ingrained in me that it's just part of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
I don't know.
So how'd you meet Frank?
I had been in Nashville for a few years.
Frank Liddell, the producer,
the infamous record producer.
Publisher.
Yeah.
Crossword puzzle doer.
I met him when he was working at Decca Records.
Yeah.
I had balls the size of fucking cannons. And
cannonballs?
I just never believed in impossibilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was there to make
If you made it this far, man, I don't understand how you could ever think that something's going to stop you. You made it through that?
Right. I mean, like, so I would get desperate and I would make stops probably every couple months to all the majors. I would just walk in. Hey, my name's Waylon Payne. I would like to talk to someone about a record deal. I'm Sammy Smith's son. And I would do it, get turned away. And nobody ever let me in.
Did you have demos? Did you have
no, nothing.
8x10s, nothing?
Nope, nothing. I'm Sammy Smith's son. I mean,
Well, I bet you were a beautiful little fucker.
I was pretty. I was really pretty. Do you remember the lady that used to work the desk at Decca Records and MCA, Miss Willie? She was the black lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One day, she looked up and she saw me coming. I don't know what she was thinking, but she was like, And I said, listen, one more time, Miss Willie. I said, I just need to talk to somebody. I just want a record deal so bad. And she said, sit down.
It's the first time anybody said that.
First time. And I was like, over there. She's like, mm-hmm. And goddamn, if a couple minutes later she didn't say, okay, go on back. You're looking for Mark Wright. He's waiting for you. Mark Wright.
Mm-hmm. He was producing who at the time?
He was the president of the label of
Right.
Decca. He was producing Chestnut, all the big guys, you know. So I go in there, my little fucking prissy ass, and
Yeah, had you thought through the
no,
to
I
this
was
step
totally
yet?
bullshitting my fucking way through all of it, and so I don't know what I said to him. I was like, I'm Sammy Smith's son. I want to be a singer. We talked for a minute or two, and he's like, I think I want you to step next door and meet my partner. I think he'll be able to help you. And so I did, and it was Frank. Now, Frank says that I came into his office, and
I can't wait to hear this.
he asked me then, well, do you write songs? I said, no. He said, you play guitar? You want to sing me something? I said, nope. He's like,
Are you even gay?
he's like, well, you got your work cut out for you.
Wow.
And that was our first introduction. And we started hanging out, me and Frank.
So you didn't play an instrument,
Mm-mm,
weren't writing songs.
mm-mm.
The only thing you had going for you as far as being the first openly gay
I
country
knew
singer was
every
that you were
country
gay.
song in the world, and I was a great singer. I
Oh,
knew
hell
that, you know.
But you didn't have anything to prove it.
No, nothing. But shortly after that, I was driving my little Suzuki Swift down West End, and there was this big old bus parked out in front of the Holiday Inn. And out in front of it, I saw these Ray-Ban glasses and this fucking penny red hair, just fucking. I was like, motherfuck, that's fucking Shelby Lynn. I know it is.
What hotel was it? What the one?
Holiday Inn right down on West End, the big one, you know.
Right across the highway? No, on West End.
Nashville.
No.
Yeah. By across the street from the Centennial Park.
Okay.
You know,
Oh,
right
yeah,
up there.
where
Yeah.
we stay
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And so I cut my car in there and I pulled in. I'm like, Shelby. And she turned around and it was fucking her.
Now, how'd
And
you
at
know her?
this
How'd
time,
you know her already?
well, my sister had introduced me to her music.
Is this after she had that huge record?
Tough All Over. It was right around that time that I found her. And she had just had Restless, that woman that she'd done at Magnatone with Brent Mayer. And
When she was going to be a country singer.
yeah, when she was country,
And
doing
Willie
her
had her
country
under his
singer.
wing.
Yeah. This was before she did all the California stuff. This was
Mhm.
back in 95,
Mhm.
96. And so I gave her a tape and we start hanging out. Pretty soon I'm living with her. She'd moved me in and I was like,
That's the thing I love about your stories. It goes from, holy shit, that's Shelby Lynn. Here's the tape. Pretty soon we're living together.
well, I mean, it was just, we started writing songs and I mean, I was living on, so Jody's wife, Vicky, she had a sister that lived in Nashville with her husband, and they lived. Okay, this is a good one. So for like the first 2 years I was in Nashville, I lived at 12th and Wedgwood.
Yeah,
you know where that's at?
Uh-huh.
It's a great big 12-story old folks home there. That's where I lived with my stepmother's sisters and her husband. My stepmother's sister and her husband.
in the old
This
folks home.
1-bedroom old folks home. I slept on the couch for about a year and a half, trying to make it in the business. Insane. So she knew that I was fucking poor. We started hanging out, writing songs together. Then before I knew it, I was kind of not working for her, but running errands or
for Shelby.
we'd write songs. Yeah, and she just kind of took me under her wing, and we were just a weird bunch of people. Nobody would give her a shot because everybody thought that she was just outrageous, and she would pull guns on people, and she'd been through shit.
You mean everybody thought everybody knew?
Knew, we go. Edward, what do you think about that? We'll talk about that later. But that's when I started learning how to write, and
By watching her or doing it with her?
doing it with her. I had things to say, and she was quick to help me. I couldn't play, but I could sing, and she could help me find the chords. And then she gave me a guitar, and I learned an E and an A and a B, and I was off to the races. Then I started learning how to play it myself. Then I learned how to be able to put those songs down myself because I had my own feelings,
And how many of those songs off of her? What was the name of her big record? That
I Am Shelby Lynn.
I Am Shelby Lynn, which was
Phenomenal.
I remember the first time I heard that, my buddy Seamus gave it to me. Sound man. Was she writing those songs while y'all were hanging out?
We'd been writing together before that, and then she went away to California and started doing that record. And I had written a couple, but it didn't get on there, or there was a chance that it might, but then I think I might have pissed her off or something and was taken out of of the Graces. But after the record came out, she had me come out to California. And we kind of patched things up, and I started singing harmony for her on that record.
Now, were y'all a thing?
No,
Never.
No, never. She loves who she loves, and I love who I love. But that doesn't stop you from loving somebody.
Of course.
You know, we love.
I was always under
we
the
loved.
impression that y'all were an item.
Everybody was always under that impression, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because I use
Because she
language.
wasn't out.
Well,
at
I
that
mean,
time.
I just assumed that if you knew us, you knew. That's the way I've always lived my life. Everybody that was in our lives knew about what we were doing. It wasn't any big deal to anybody that was not in our world because they weren't going to be around us. You
Right.
know?
But then when her record takes off like it did, I mean, that was the biggest record of the year.
That was a big
That one record of the year, that
Yeah.
was a Grammy. That was the one.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden people want to know because she's gorgeous. She's got these songs that are phenomenal. I'm sure it's like, so, you know the way we are. It's like, so wait a minute, who are these songs about?
Well, I mean, we stopped hanging out right after that, you know, because I was drinking too much, I guess, and I ended up getting fired. And
Is it hard for you to look back on something like that and go, I was a little jaded and all the things, what you just said? Do you compartmentalize that as that was its own event, or were you a little jaded and pissed off and confused about fucking all of it?
I think that I didn't
Beforehand.
know what I was doing. I mean, I was just winging it.
I
Every
just mean all the
every
lies
move,
and the secrets, and
every
the families
move
and
that I ever made in my life from the time I was 18, literally was winging it. I would wing it from one situation to another, you know. So, I mean, it didn't really. I don't think back on it as bad. I think it all brought me here,
Mhm.
you know, and that's not a bad thing.
Of
you
course,
know?
man.
It is what it is, and I'm proud of that moment in my life.
It's amazing to me that the talent that you have wasn't the thing that necessarily carried you through, because it wasn't like your talent as a singer and as a songwriter now. It wasn't like that was all readily apparent when you were going through all that stuff and winging it from situation to situation. But it certainly had to have helped.
I think that I had no idea when I got the desire to want to do this, the amount of work that it was going to take. You know, I'd seen my mother do it, and I had a free ride to walk on a stage anytime I wanted to. So I thought it was kind of owed me in a way. When I came to Nashville, I thought it might be kind of owed.
So
In a bit.
almost like
It's
an
a birthright.
entitlement thing.
Well, it is a birthright. I mean, I don't joke when I call country royalty a real thing. You know, I am born into it.
Yeah.
But because of the sweat and blood that I've put into it and the tears, and I'm glad that I had my ass kicked when I first came to town, you know. I'm glad my ass was kicked in lots of ways throughout my life, I think, because it just, you know, I wouldn't change any of it.
Right.
You know, maybe I would take some of the memories out of my head that I can't get out of my head. That's
Right.
probably about the only thing I would really change,
Right.
you know, because it's turned out really good.
Absolutely.
You
And
know?
you have great friends, you have great relationships, you have great all. But it's amazing to me listening to this story. And we've known each other a long time, and we've talked pretty in depth at times, but never all in one setting where, like, I'm overwhelmed. Like
Well, I mean, like, I think we should go ahead and preface that overwhelmness with, like, we just broached all of this stuff like a couple of weeks ago.
yeah,
We've known each other for a number of years, you know, and thanks for, like, being a listener, you know, because people can, like, it's, I don't know, it's not easy to be friends sometimes because you have to fucking go places that are weird.
yeah,
I thank God that we have been friends for the number of years we have, because it kind of, I guess it happened organically in the way it needed to, you know. But it's not really anything that's odd to talk about.
What's funny to me that
It's just a little overwhelming sometimes because it does seem like it's just outrageous and you know, you made a comment, you were like, when I said something, you were like, okay, I don't know whether I want to call bullshit on this or not, because I don't know what I want, you know, and it does. Some of it is just outrageous
well, when
and
one
crazy.
outrageous story is enough to have a deep impact on somebody's life. Let's talk about the abuse. That's one thing that could be huge. Then let's talk about the coming out and getting kicked out of your family. That's another thing. And then that jumps to all of these different situations, having to sell yourself. All of these situations on their own could make a psychologist rich.
Oh, of course. Hey,
And
Ham.
each one of them going to the next
Hey.
one. At some point you go, hey man, are you bullshitting me?
Hey, Ham hooked me up with a shrink a few years back. This is a true story. If I'm lying, I'm fucking dying. So I remember when I first started getting sober here, they hooked me up with this therapist. You get like counseling for $35, and so they lined me up with this guy. His name was Seth, and so I'm like, okay, and I talked to my friend Sue Ann about it. I was living with her for a while. She was a big part of me getting sober too, and Edward. But when I moved in with her, it was a real accountability wake up. You couldn't party anymore because there's like this woman, this 60, 70-year-old woman, like always.
Who knew what you were here for?
Yeah, and she, so that nipped pretty much a lot of it in the bud. What was I doing? I just lost my train of thought.
I was talking about all the stories one at a time would be enough to derail some people's lives and be impactful. And then
I totally lost my train of thought.
Ham.
Oh, the psychiatrist dude. Yeah, right, Seth. So they hooked me up with him, and I'm like, Sue Ann, maybe I should tell him everything that's been going on in my life because that's what he's there for. And she's like, I think that's a good thing. So I talked to her for a couple of weeks before I went to my first session. And so I get the session, and I sit down, and he's this gay dude, and they thought they'd paired me up right and everything. So he's like, okay, so what are you here for? And I went, bleh, spit it all out on the table. And at the end of it, he was sitting there going,
And you don't really tell these stories in linear chronology.
No, I don't think it was. It
come
just
out.
kind of comes. Yeah, it's a lot. You pushed a lot of it down.
So what
and
did he say? Nothing.
He treated me for about 2.5 months, and then informed me one day that I needed to find a different therapist
Is
because
this where you
he
started
was
sleeping with him?
No, I didn't sleep with him. I
Okay.
didn't. But he decided that he was going to leave the field of.
He got overwhelmed.
Counseling. I guess he got
You knocked him
overwhelmed.
out.
I might have knocked him out a little. Yeah. Hey, but I mean, he answered a lot of questions for me. Because like for a while I had fried myself out so much on meth that I was seeing shit and like I was in situations that I shouldn't have been in.
Right.
Didn't know what was really real. Plus I was in Hollywood, and in Hollywood things just happen. It is
this
the
is
land
real.
of make believe and
No, this is real.
none of it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and plus I was in the movies. So it was like a perfect recipe for disaster,
Okay, so hold up. You're in Nashville. You meet Frank.
Mhm.
He says, "Oh, so you want to? This is your dream."
Mhm.
Where'd that go?
It didn't.
How old were you? And what?
23. I mean, this was 25, 30 years ago.
1995. Nice.
Yeah. So we meet up. I start hanging with Shelby. We did some demos. I took them back to Mark Wright and Frank. Didn't work. No. And one of them was called "Let Me Love You Like a Man." I mean, it was really not a. It was,
Swinging for the fences.
it was really good. It was really like, and they were like, great. Maybe just try something a little different. So
Is this after Ty?
no. Ty's not till way later.
And he
Ty's
had-
not.
yeah.
Ty, I think around this time, Ty had maybe just got caught in the bushes.
Okay,
That
so
was
he-
like what was going on
So
then.
he'd had his deal. He'd had hits,
Yeah.
and he was out.
And he was like, he was. No, he wasn't out. He was never doing his thing. He was still making his hits. He was still
So he
being
was-
a big,
all right, I
yeah.
got you.
But I had gone to work with Shelby. Shelby and she went to California. We hooked back up. I start working for her, singing harmony in her band for this record, this new I Am Shelby Lynn record.
Mhm.
I got fired in California because I was drinking. I didn't have any money to get home. She wouldn't give me a bus ticket home. She wouldn't. So I was just there. And so started staying on some friends' couches, and slowly just kind of started trying to figure out what I wanted to do in California. And wasn't too long after that, I was driving down the road and I was stopped at a red light and I looked over and there was Keith Gaddis. And I was like, hey man, what are you doing here? And
Did you
he's
know
like,
him?
oh yeah, from Nashville. We had used to sing on Broadway. He's like, hey man, what are you doing? And that clicked something special. We started a honky tonk night in Hollywood called Eastbound and Down.
Mm-hmm. At what club?
It was the King King. It was a club on Hollywood Boulevard. He, myself, Austin Hanks, Travis Howard. We did a country night. And after the first one, which had more people than we even realized, the next one was standing room only, and we were like making like we was the hottest show in Nashville.
How big is
in
this
Hollywood? 300-400 people
So-
capacity, but there would be 1,000 people.
Took off.
I mean, it was badass. You'd look down, Vince Vaughn and Katie Lang and Dwight and you know, these were Lucinda. It was like they were all we were having a ball. So he decided he wanted to make a record on me. He listened to my
Who was
songs.
playing drums, and was it the same band every week, or
It was I don't remember who played drums in that. It might have been Mitch Marine. Mitch played with all of us.
he played bass in my band?
Did he? Wow.
To be a better drummer, right before we moved out to LA.
That's great. Yeah, well, he was an awesome.
He's incredible.
Yeah, he was great.
Wow.
So we start making a record. Keith borrowed $30,000 from this lady, who said she would fund the record if we would let her record the experience. So that was Margot. Margot started doing a documentary that's still in the making, and Gaddis produced that record on me, and
which is fantastic. Like,
it's a great record. There were not many people that would take a chance on a gay country singer in Hollywood
well, I don't
trying to
think the
make
gay
it.
thing- that's the
Well,
funny
I mean,
part, is
that
the
was
gay
a.
thing
I mean,
never
it was
really-
to me, it was like that was always a big thing because I couldn't get anything done in Nashville. You know what I mean? But when I came to Hollywood, all of a sudden we had free reign and nobody cared. You know what I mean? Because I mean, we lived our lives, and so it was a very freeing thing to be able to be yourself out somewhere and not have people give you shit for it. You know?
Yeah.
I was writing songs and I was accepted, and I was able to breathe and be born. You know, a lot of people think those songs on that first record are about love relationships like Her. That's clearly about Shelby Lynn,
Right.
but people can't separate themselves from the need to think that we were sex partners because the song is a love song. Well, I
Right.
loved her.
You still do.
Yeah, we are very, very good friends. I love her. I'll love my friends till the day I die. If you get yourself a place in my heart, you usually always have one, except for maybe a couple. You know? But
It's funny though, man. Like when I think about that record and all of your music, and I know that to talk about that part of your life, certainly for the first 20, 30 minutes here, it's a big part of your life, but as far as it goes with your music and your songwriting, it never crossed my mind or crosses my mind still. I don't give a shit. Like, it doesn't, that's the beauty about talent and just the raw ability you have to convey your music, whether it's
Yeah.
your voice, your writing, your words, whatever. It's like, being gay is fun to talk about. It's provocative at some level, but it doesn't make a shit bit of difference
Yeah.
as far as your music goes, man. 'Cause
well, see, that's what kind of, when you figured that out, that it's not about a gay thing, and that's been another very crazy, weird twist of it all. I don't date. I haven't dated in 15 years. But yet, that seems to be the talking point these days. A little bit.
I don't think it has to be.
I don't think it does either, because the record's not a gay record.
Man, no, that's what I mean. It means that part of your life. Maybe it's the times that we live in for me, and that we've we're so far from where we were when you first came out with your parent, with your mom, and
Yeah.
like that.
Oh yeah.
We've all moved on a little
Yeah.
bit past that. It has nothing to do with it, man. Your music and your talent stands alone. So when you made that record, I remember it because I think I had just made or was about to make Electric. It was
Yeah,
2002.
I think you had just made Electric. And mine came out, we made mine in 2002.
For some reason,
And
man,
three.
I always feel like when I made Electric with Frank, and it might be just revisionist on my part, but I feel like your record influenced what I was doing. And maybe I hadn't heard it yet, but it
Well,
feels
you
to
could
me
have,
like it was
because,
in the
I mean,
same vein.
It was, we did it in 2002. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it was a couple
I
of
think it
years
came
until we had got it to where, I'm not sure.
Did it make it didn't make a splash? Like it didn't.
Well, I mean, some places it did. I mean, it didn't have any promotion. Because by the
Did it
time
come out
it
on
came out
Republic?
on Republic, yeah, by the time it came out, I was already fucked up and off into the Thai world, you know? And so I couldn't work it really. I did some dates with Pat, you know, but that didn't
And he
really.
recorded one of those songs, didn't he?
No, I wrote a couple of songs on his album, Wave on Wave, and I did all the harmonies. That's what got me into Republic.
I remember he was way into it.
Yeah, he loved that record. He really had a lot to do with me getting that deal. As a matter of fact, he was the one who said, you know, I was in New York playing a show with Willie. And
At Tramps or yeah.
And he was like, "Hey, you need to go see Avery tomorrow. He wants to see you." So I took the record and left Gaddis and everybody at the hotel, and I went over to Universal and got myself a record deal. It was badass. And I mean, I walked in and just
What a godsend Keith Gaddis was for you, man.
yeah, he was amazing. He changed my life a lot.
Because we talked about this a little bit the other night when we were on the phone, either early for you or late for me. But where I was kind of questioning you, because what I love about your songwriting, when it's raw, like you've sent me demos at times or whatever, even stuff off this record that's coming out, where it's very dense and a lot of verses, and sometimes just like the stories you tell, like I'm kind of like, whoa, hold on. And I've always wondered like what Gaddis's role in as far as arrangements for those songs, and you know, because that record's a pop country rock masterpiece.
Well, I mean, I'll
kind of
tell
vibe.
you, the only thing that really, there were two things about that record that really changed from my original. I mean, I lived with Wyatt Earp during the lead up to that record. I was a carpenter in LA, a spare job, and
Jesus was a carpenter.
Yeah, he was. Wore organic shoes. Wait. So Wyatt lived in this Adobe place.
Wore
and
organic shoes.
Love that.
8 organic shoes.
He had all these wooden beams out on this patio. You know, it was like stucco and these wood beams. And Wyatt was loaded when he lived in Hollywood. He was in the mortgage business, and he hosted all of us at his house. He fed us for years. And when I first met Wyatt, he hired me to refinish all of the wood and re-stain it all. So that's how we met, and that's where I stayed, and I started writing that album. And I wrote most of that album at Wyatt's house on a little, 4-track at his house. And
Were most of those songs like almost?
they were done
Would
except
you-
for Christian. Gaddis made me change Christian, instead of. I think I wanted to refrain Christian. Do you think it's going to rain after, like, where is God now? And we fought over that. And there was another song that I'd written about Henry Rollins after I'd written this, read this book that he had written about the night that his roommate was murdered and all this kind of stuff. It was called Now Watch Him Die. And I thought that would be a perfect end to the record, but Gaddis just did not get that song. And up until like 2 days before the record started, we had decided we were not going to make the record because we couldn't not agree on not the song. And I was, whatever. Well, I just was like, if we're going to do a song, if we're going to do an album of my songs, we should do an album of my songs. But I really didn't know anything about music. I knew I'd written all these songs and I knew how they were supposed to sound. Gaddis took it to a different level.
Was this kind of like, for all intent and purposes, was this your first batch of songs? Was that record your first big batch of songs?
Oh yeah. It was my first batch of songs that I wrote by myself. Yeah. I'd been co-writing with some other folks, but these were my thoughts and my things. And you
had no idea at that point that Gaddis hates everything.
No, and I didn't
really
have any, but he loved me, dude. He just loved me. He took me under his wing, and man, we were best buddies.
No.
Can we smoke a cigarette?
Yeah.
I love that.
Let's go.
Let's go smoke a cigarette. You okay, Edward?
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Just enjoying it.
Waylon,
I'm remembering.
shit's
all of this.
fascinating, man.
That's crazy, isn't it?
We could talk for days, about these stories and everything else, but when you just start playing, it's like, that song, that saying about talking about music's like dancing about architecture.
That's
You ever heard that?
No. That's pretty great.
You play that song, it's like, oh, it puts everything in alignment. It makes sense somehow, even though that song says nothing in detail about what we've talked about for the last hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it says everything.
A lot.
And I remember that story you told me about when you asked Ty something. You asked him about stories. What's the line in the song? I asked you for
pictures memories. Yeah.
And you tell me that you started looking around the house and going, "There's not a picture of me on these walls."
None. There was nothing. And that was the night that it all kind of went down. He was like, "Hey, you need to get out of here. My boyfriend's coming over to kick your ass." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" So yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
So how'd you get in the movies?
That was
And how many have you been in? Like what? And has it always been a role thing, or did you audition for things? Like,
man, I've got like 14 or 15 to my credit now. It started with Donna Karan,
a bag maker.
Yeah, the lady designer. Yeah. She was doing a new campaign for her summer line in 2003, maybe right before the record came out. The record was done and it was about to come out.
The Drifter.
Yeah, and she was doing a mini movie with these supermodels and it was a storyline about a girl coming to find her friend or brother and listen to Waylon Payne music. And so it was a little movie that we did, and then a couple of months later,
was it a speaking role or was it?
I was just playing myself. It was
But you were talking. And
oh yeah, it was a little mini movie and
scripted.
Oh yeah, totally scripted. It was about a 15-minute little thing. Sylvia Miles was in it. She was a great actress from the Andy Warhol days, and it was one of her last films, so it was cool to work with her. And a couple of months later, I had a friend at APA in Nashville named Frank Wing, who I've known as long as Frank Liddell. He met him when he was just a brand new agent, just started. Yeah, that's your Frank Wing.
Yeah.
He was a brand new agent, just starting out in Nashville.
Wore a lot of turquoise and.
Yeah, handsome Indian guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, his dad was in the politics and the wings down in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he's a federal judge or something something
like
big. Anyway, he tried to help me, as an agent, and I was just green then too. But we kept in touch over the years and through the years, and he called me one day. He's like, "Hey, there's this thing happening in Hollywood. They're making a movie about Johnny Cash, and they want real singers and songwriters to play the actors, and I think you should go read for this. It would be you might like it." So he sent me the script, something happened. I went in and I was going to audition for Waylon Jennings. I just brought a guitar, And I had these Manuel pants that I'd paid way too much money for. And so I was out of it anyway. So I just went in looking like a rock star, and I got a call back. And in the time that it took me to get the call back, I'd read the script, and I was like, man, this thing's really good. And on the way in to the next one, my buddy Will drove me to the audition, and I was like, I really think I want to audition for this other part of Jerry Lee Lewis because it's really,
I love you.
it's really good, you know. And when I got there, James Mangold, the director, met, and we shook hands, and we started talking, and I was like, hey, I know I read for Waylon Jennings, but this other part's really, really, I think it might be more me. He was like, well, that's really what we were kind of looking at you for, and would you like to consider reading for Jerry Lee Lewis? So I read for it.
That's so funny, man. They
It
already
was.
knew.
Well, I guess they did. And he was like, at the end of the meeting, he said, no, do you play piano? And I lied through my teeth. I said, absolutely. And he said, well, can you have a video here back for us maybe tomorrow afternoon of you playing some? I'm like, yes, sure. And
Jump off the cliff.
And I went back to the house, and the guy that was helping manage me at the time, Mike Welch, he was Kevin Spacey's assistant at the time, and Kevin had come into my life for a brief moment, and was I met Mike through him, and
he threw you on the bed. And,
mm-mm.
oh, a different story?
Different story.
Okay.
Mike came over and filmed me. I had a piano at
Would
the
you learn
place.
just a couple block chords?
I learned I'm Not Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
And I played it all afternoon and all evening, and I could play Great Balls of Fire because it was in G and it had 3 chords, but it wasn't fast.
Right.
And
But you picked that up that afternoon.
It did. I was determined to do it. I knew a few chords on the piano, so it wasn't like it was a foreign thing. I didn't go in and just automatically teach myself stuff. But it took me a few minutes to get my fingers to know where they were supposed to go, and it's all repetition. So, yeah, and they called me back, and they were like, hey, congratulations, Mr. Lewis. And I was like, motherfuck, this is great.
Isn't that great how that worked?
It
Of
was
course you were Jerry Lee
awesome.
Lewis instead of Waylon.
I had a ball. And
Did Shooter end up playing Waylon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was great. We had a great time. That movie was out of control.
That's a pretty big splash. As
It
far
was
as your
awesome.
first feature film. And
Well, think about it. I mean, I was pulling off some amazing shit, you know. I just went to Hollywood and tried, you know, and even though my first record wasn't that successful, you couldn't have told me that.
Come with the
you know?
Drifter?
Yeah.
Well, I
You
was going
know.
to bring that up when we started talking about the record earlier because
Hey, but you know what? That record
is huge for a lot of people. It's just
well, it surprised me when it first came out because it was a #1 record in Texas on the charts for a minute. And I didn't know anything about that. And it was really cool. But the cuts that it brought me, you know, and I was really fortunate or smart or whatever. There was a stroke of luck that allowed me to retain my publishing on that. I didn't have to give it to Universal. I owned it all. Still do.
that's the beauty of having nobody really want it.
Yeah. And so that's been a lifesaver over the past few years. You know, Charlie cut the bottom.
Charlie got the bottom. Leanne cut her.
Yeah. Corey cut Running from the Rain.
Corey
Morrow.
Did Pat cut something from there?
No, he cut Jesus on a Greyhound though afterwards. I mean, that was, even though I didn't, but still I wrote it. So it's
Yeah.
cool, you know. Aaron Lewis has just cut the bottom.
Your recording of the bottom is one of my favorite sparse, just dream-like
Well, Gaddis
songs.
really did his thing on that, you know. He,
Well, I just love it that Gaddis, as talented as he is, I've talked about this with him before, so it's not like I'm speaking out of turn, but like for him to step out of his own shadow and really dive into somebody else's art.
Yeah. Oh, don't think that it wasn't totally turned by his hands. That was a real hard. Okay, I'm going to speak freely, and I might get in trouble, but I would say it to him too. That was the first one of the first experiences I had where it was a dick contest, you know? And there were several times when we fought, and there were several times when he threatened to pull the plug if I didn't fucking get my act together and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? There was a lot of that. And
well, I can see him doing that because in his mind, he's like, I'm taking time out of
I'm the
being
boss.
Keith Gaddis to work with you.
But he got a great record. So
Yes,
it
he
was,
did, man.
it was, you know, I'll never be able to thank him enough for that.
That
So-
record really does. There's a few records in my world that I go back to and listen to. And when I listen to them after a while, I go, fuck, that's lightning in a bottle.
I have not listened to that record in a very, very, very long time.
Well, I can tell you, it still holds up in a way that
Sometimes it surprises me because something will come, like I'll hear a, you know, random her somehow or and they really do surprise me sometimes because the production is incredible and he didn't leave anything to chance on that
he
either.
killed it. And you
Yeah.
did too. But there's
Honey, listen, that record was all him. I had nothing to do with that record except for showing up and writing the songs and then like singing them like 800 times.
yeah, but also showing up and being that young with it,
That was one of the
your
biggest.
first
That was one
batch
of the biggest
songs,
fights
man.
too. Was because I have kind of a photographic memory when it comes to singing,
Uh-huh.
and like when you sing your song in the studio and you know you've got the take, and then you never hear that take again, it's frustrating. And the frustrating part for me was that most of that record was like a jigsaw puzzle.
He comped all his vocals.
All of it.
That must have been hard. Having not made
It
records
was
before, he probably
hard.
didn't
It was
understand what
hard
that was.
because I had watched my mom for years. Mama did not understand why we were making that record. She died before that record came out, and but she got to hear it when we finished, and she fucking destroyed me because she hated it.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. She was like, "You've been fucking recording an album for 6 months, and this is what you got."
She didn't understand it.
No, because she was like, yeah, I mean, she could record 17 albums in 6 months, you know? They had 4 or 5
She
days
was
to cut an
seasoned
album
veteran.
and bam, that's how she did it, you
And a
know?
singer. Yeah, that was a different time.
Yeah.
I have a friend who every time I make a record, he hates it. And if he doesn't hate it, I know it's a bad record. If he hates it, like people that hate your record, normally means it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially if it's someone that you care about their opinion.
Oh God, what does it mean when everybody loves it?
Well, that's when, yeah, be careful. Watch out for those.
Oh God damn. I might as well go on home.
Be careful for those.
Oh no. Oh no.
That's funny you say that, man, because all you had were the songs and whatever, but the ability to allow somebody else to take control of those songs when you hadn't made a record before. So you didn't really know what comping vocals were or putting two different, like building records like that, where you get the takes, but then you,
Yeah, it was
Turn it
totally
into a
foreign.
Frankenstein
Totally
thing.
foreign to me. I didn't understand
so
it.
did you like it when it came out? Or did you believe your mom?
No, I didn't. Well, it was hard for me to listen to because I like those. That wasn't the way I sang those songs.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write those songs that way. That was another one. That was a huge argument. Was fucking one day I came in and I was like, I wrote the song this way. He's like, you didn't write the song that way. And I was like, yeah, I wrote the song that way. Remember?
It's funny though, man, because you probably didn't know much about why it's important to have those tight arrangements.
Mm-mm.
And I've told you this before when we've talked about this, where I go, who helped you arrange that? Because I've heard rough vocals of some of your songs. And while I absolutely love them and see the brilliance in them, sometimes they're really long.
Oh yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah. Get to
come
it.
on, where are we going with this? Because my attention span gets cracked
Yeah.
up. And then when I hear the records, I go, God, I'm so glad he's got a great editor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this new record, there's nothing that was a beautiful thing about that was it's all live from the floor.
Well, I've
There are
heard
a
different
few-
versions of these songs though too.
Well, you've heard this record for the past 10 years.
right.
Now you heard the first versions I did down in Austin. I've done 2 versions of this album.
Right.
The first version was what I did with Matt Hubbard over at Willie's studio.
Which
a
is
lot
real
of
organic
a lot of the
sound.
same songs, but it's very
High
organic
Horse
and
and-
it's all the same. It's a lot of the same songs, but it was the first, I guess, existence of them, you know. And Frank, I took that record to Frank, and he was like, "This is really really great, but I want to make it better." And
Did he say kind of what I'm saying? Like,
no, the one that he heard, the songs are all there. They're exactly the way that they were recorded on the Texas one. There are a few that aren't on there because I had a few different ideas and things, but Frank
Make it
loved
better
it. He
how?
just wanted it sonically.
the musician.
He wanted it to be better musicians, better.
Just tight.
It's like when Loretta Lynn went in and sang Honky Tonk Girl for the first time, and they stopped the session, and the guy goes, I don't need more pickers, I need better pickers,
Right.
you know? And Frank knew what he was getting. He knew what he wanted, and he gave me exactly what I needed, I think.
You've been lucky to have people that really have great taste
Yeah.
take a real interest in what you do, because both Gaddis and Frank are.
I have a lot of great father figures in my life,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of worked its way out. You know, Frank's been solid as a rock for 25 years in my life. you
Which
know?
might be the first time I've ever heard anybody say those words
about Frank.
Frank.
He's good shit, you know?
He's great. He's one of the only guys in town that I've ever, over the course of 20 years, 25 years, if I don't trust any opinion, I'll give a song or a record or whatever to Frank and go, okay, man, what do you think? And he'll come back and go, hey, man.
What you want from him is to have him come back going, hey, man.
This fired me up. I'm
Hey,
fired
man.
up.
Yeah, fired up, man.
But he always gives really good advice. And you can trust him.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Gaddis. Like, they might not give you the accolades or the flowery language that you want, but they're going to go, hey, this could be better.
Mm-hmm.
I sent Frank a record and he goes, hey, man, why don't you just scrap this and go do something great while nobody's watching?
Yeah.
And I go, oh, 10-4, good buddy. So hold on, you did Walk the Line.
Mm-hmm. I did walk the line and found that I was good at it. And the agents that helped me get Walk the Line signed me up right away. And I started, you know, the next film I was the lead and I just kept going. And I liked it a lot. It's
What do you love about it? Because
I love the craft. I love the technicality of it. I love everyone coming together with a common goal to do something special. And when everyone takes a chance and puts the effort into it, you have something that can live forever. I mean, movies, that was, what are you talking about? That was my childhood. That was my escape. That was all of our escape. Not only that, but to know that the first real film out of the gate that you had was going to be a classic. There was just no way around that.
right.
I mean, 20th Century Fox, Johnny Cash, Reese Witherspoon, Joaquin. There's no way that is not going to be around for 50 years. And it's kind of badass.
Yeah, it
you
turned
know?
out to be everything everybody thought
Yeah,
about.
it's cool. And And so I worked as many of those as I could, but kind of burned myself out because I was still doing drugs. And burned a few bridges. But you know what? The last
Would you show up on set and be hungover or hammered?
I always had the ability, or at least thought I had the ability to, when it was time to go work, I could separate that. I prided myself on not showing up and not letting people, or at least I thought, that I was able to pull it off. But sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't.
So for people that are listening, because I know whenever I listen to these things, I'll try and, because it's going by in real time. So if you were like, hey man, besides Walk the Line, which is obviously a calling card, what movie would you go, hey man,
Crazy.
go check this out?
Crazy.
I'm not sure if I've seen that.
Crazy is a film about the guitar player Hank Garland. And he was a troubled guy. He had some issues mentally, but he was just a great guitar player, Chet Atkins level, Grady Martin level.
Right.
And it was everything you dream of. Little $3 million movie. Ali Larter was my co-star and my leading lady, and we just it was a beautiful film. Beautiful film. It was the last film that they shot at the Ambassador Hotel before they tore it down.
Where, is it stream on Netflix or what?
You can get it on Amazon Prime. And another one that I did that I'm extremely proud of is a director named Monty Hellman. His last film that he did called Road to Nowhere. I was really proud of that because that was one of the first. It was just a cool experience. Yeah, it's a great film.
So when you these days, is that something where they called you, or
well, I mean, these days, if it happens, I mean, like sometimes they'll call Edward. Like there have been a couple of times that'll happen, and because there's used to there was a number on the IMDb page, call this guy, and if you want him. Now, things are a little different. I'm with an agency. I'm with Paradigm, and they rep me out in California now, and but I haven't really done many projects for them. I kind of told Frank that I would put that part of my life on hold for a moment. There is a role that I'm in talks to do, which I have put my foot firmly down that I will do, and
right.
And there's no argument about that. But
is that something where you go read for an audition, or is it something that
something that
work for you?
Well, I mean, the one that this one was just offered, and they're making a film about a friend of mine, and they kind of have an idea of who they want to play him, and so they kind of approached me, and of course I will do anything for them. So yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
So what happened to this documentary? Tell me a little bit about that.
The documentary, it was supposed to be about, I guess, the birth of this country singer making his record. And they got so much more.
So they were filming you while you were
They filmed me from 2002 until my mother was lying dead in her coffin in 2005. So they got me making The Drifter. They got me going to New York and getting my record deal. They got me meeting Ty. They got me going straight downhill for the next 2 years, 3 years. And it all culminated with them writing me off, thinking I was going to die in an alley somewhere, probably. For a number of years, nothing happened. And I came to Austin in 2008, met Edward, and with his help and Willie's help and some other friends, just pull myself together and so we started talking again about maybe turning it into something a little bit more helpful, you know, and so it became a film about the perils of methamphetamines.
Mm-hmm.
And but we haven't really quite finished it yet. We don't know what the finish is going to be, but you know, it's a. I don't think that I would find much value of it in it right now, because it's just a spoiled brat who gets everything he ever wanted and then can't deal with it.
Right.
You know, there's not really much value to it unless you go back and you show something in the end and help people figure out what it is, you know.
Yeah, what is it, man?
Man, love saved my life. It really did. Had I not been in the right place at the right time, I might have missed something that changed my life. And, you know, I joke about it a lot, but it's no joke. I just took a chance and tried something different. I let someone help me, and I let someone love me and help me get back on my feet.
When?
2008, I came to town. I came to Austin from Nashville. Corey Morrow helped set up like 8 dates. And the first night that I got to Austin, July 24, 2008, I met Edward. And Edward just fucking cared. I can't explain it. I say we fell in love because we all fell in love with each other, but in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd never had. There weren't many men in my life that were solid people that didn't want to fucking take from me or use me, or, you know. And all of a sudden there was just this person in my life that just wanted to see me do good. And over time I trusted him. Over time he fucking helped me figure out, okay, you need to do things different. Let's try to figure out a different way to do things, and pay my taxes, get a checking account, fucking start handling yourself with some class and some composure, and eventually it gave me the strength to get off of shit, you know. He had a baby, and that baby I've known since he was in the womb. Talked to him. He was an Aries, just like me. He was born a week before me. And he's just a light. He's so kind, and he's so... I knew that this kid knew me and would want someone of his dad's character to be there, you know? And so I just loved my new friend and let him love me. And, you know, I was under the impression at the first, I'm sure, that I thought that I was finding a savior, you know, this guy's going to come and save my life and make me happily ever after. And it was like, no, that's not what we're going to be. But if you'll trust me, I think that I can show you some bigger things. That was never really said, but it was just kind of, that was what it felt like, you know? And so I trusted it. And I
How long did it take you to trust that? Because
couple
did
years.
you ever think that you kept waiting for the other shoe to drop?
I mean, it just was, it just happened. It was just like, it just, eventually it just got through that shell that I built, you know?
It's funny the way you talk about that, man, because the friendship that we've had, it's a trip to me, because sometimes the way you fall in love with people, not in a sexual way, but the way you really, you're very you're very open.
I just love,
And
when
you
I
go,
love
"Whoa,"
people, I
and
love them.
And I remember thinking, can can I carry the weight of his? Can I be what I feel like he needs me to be? And for a long time, man, like I would kind of keep you
Of course,
because I was like, hey man, I got my own wife and kids, like I got enough. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
because you were so open and so obviously in need of that in a great way. But it wasn't until the last couple of years where I go, no, we can be friends, man.
yeah.
We can be healthy together. It's a trip.
It's all about boundaries and figuring out what you need, And you're talking to somebody. When I met Edward and I came back, and when I was trying to be centered, I had no boundaries. Everything had just become so wide open. I didn't even know who I was anymore, But I'm still here,
Yeah.
So
tell me this: when you put out our new record, say the title again, man. I love it.
Blue Eyes, the Harlot, the Queer, the Pusher, and me.
So you're saying that you've dealt with multiple personalities? It's a word.
Exactly. Just call me Sybil.
You said Sybil, not simple.
Sybil. Yeah. Remember that movie?
Of course.
Ooh, that's some fucked up shit.
I dated her.
Did you? Me too.
So when you put a record out like that now, knowing that what you know about 25 years in the music business and the movie business and doing what you do, like what I struggle with this too. I'm picking your brain. Like what kind of expectations do you have about stuff?
Man, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to expect from all this. I have a couple of folks that are careful they don't want me to get my hopes up.
Oh yeah.
Because I get my hopes up a lot. I'm always wanting to believe in the next thing, And but this is the first time in like 15 years that I've been able to believe in something because I followed through.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken me a long time to get this record done. 10 years I've been making and singing these songs and figuring out a way to get them heard. And
but do you want to? Okay, let me ask you this: like, as far as I know that after all these years in my world, it's still about touring.
oh yeah,
For me,
that's
it's like
it.
100 days a year on the road.
If I wouldn't have had to cancel in March because of the coronavirus, we'd still be out there. That's all I want to do. We've got, and it works. I've got a great band these days. We're all nearly 50. It's all been done.
Right.
And that's a fucking great feeling to have because there aren't any amateurs anymore. We know that, okay, if sound check's at 5, well, we all need to be already ready to be there. You know what I mean? We've got work to do.
6.
Whatever, you know what I mean? It's like you show up. If I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna be straight for this, I need y'all to be straight for it too,
Right.
so to speak.
Right.
And it works effortlessly. I asked Frank when it was apparent that it was not working the way I was doing it. I said, okay, here's what I would like to have happen.
Leo?
Frank Liddell, yeah. I said, if you could arrange it, Frank, to where tomorrow when I walk into rehearsal, I don't have any friends in that room, and everybody knows their shit. And did you get that June bug out of your car?
Yeah,
Come on. He just likes me.
That's Brandy.
And I was like, if you can make it to where they know I just need some pros and I need your help. And that was all it took. And I got it. And
that's fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen you play with a band.
I guarantee you've never seen me play like this because it just has been right from the minute. There's 4 of us. It made me step up in my guitar playing.
Yeah.
But everybody knows their shit and everybody knows what they're supposed to do, which makes my job just as easy as pie.
Like what kind of venues are you playing?
Theaters. Little
theaters?
I started with when I first signed with Paradigm, I went out with Robert Earl for a few months, just as a duo and then a solo by myself. And then
How'd he take to you?
he and I had a ball. I love him.
Good.
He was really, really, really a gentleman and so accommodating. And we laughed a lot. He's a funny dude, and we had a ball. And then they put me back in those same venues a couple months later with my band, and man, it was pretty cool. We were only playing to 4 or 5 people a night, but hey, we were packing those 4 or 5 people in.
Yeah.
One little dude came to 5 shows.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, tried to get me in the trunk, but I wouldn't let him.
Good. Make it stay strong.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do, man? What do you,
I'm hoping that this virus gets out of the air and we can all go back to work, because I want nothing more than to just play this record for a few years and then make another one and play that for a few years. And, you know, I want to keep hanging with my buddies and writing music. And, yeah, I want to do more movies. I want an Oscar. I want a Grammy, maybe. It's not really that important. I want the Oscar, though.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to keep being me and hanging out and having fun. Because it's a lot more fun these days than I can remember it, you know?
Well, it's amazing to see, like right before we started talking, and this is my first go around at having 2 mics in a conversation with a friend as far as like on my dime.
You're a good podcaster.
Well, the thing is because I know you at a level where we speak freely, and I knew the answer before I asked you, but I just wanted to make sure before we got into a situation like this, to where, I mean, man, there's not many people who can be as wide open with their heart as you are always. And like you said, like, I remember when we were at that Miranda Lambert taping for the songwriters all got together to sing a song, to sing whatever song they contributed to her last record, The Weight of the Wings. And at night, I remember Kevin, my tour manager, and I was like, because we were talking about, you were like, it's all happening. It's all happening. It's good. We finally did it. It's going, man. We got a platinum. Like, I was going, is he hoping for a lot more than, like, are his expectations really high? Or because you were so amped up and it scared me for you.
For that record?
Well, just for your life. Like, you're like, we got a song on this record. It's going to be this and this, and we're going to go out and tour, we're going to do this and that. And I was like,
hey, man, how often? I mean, maybe it happens a lot to other folks, but I mean, that was only my 2nd platinum record. I mean, I don't
no,
get
but it's
that many
funny.
of them.
Like, just from my perspective of having had my own, like, I can be an optimist too.
Mm.
And my expectations, like the first time you go on the Tonight Show and you're like, tomorrow, y'all better fucking say goodbye to me tonight, because tomorrow I'm not gonna have time for this shit. And then you walk out the hotel and you go,
I am all too aware of Cinderella moments,
nothing's
baby.
changed.
I am all too familiar with that. My whole life has been based on those moments.
Right, like every record's gonna be the next big thing. And
Well, I'm not. I am not delusional enough to think that that's about to happen. That's not anything that is in my mind or clouding my mind.
Right.
I do believe that good music finds its way to wherever it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
And I think that for the first time in a very long time, I've got a really stellar something. And
that's going to move you to the next place.
I think so. And I think some people need to hear it, you know. And even if it's singing for 4 people a night,
those can be the best shows.
those are still, you know, you still get to hear a few people's responses afterwards, you know. I don't think I'm going to be singing for 4 people for too long.
No.
But I don't think that I need my expectations to get too lofty yet. I can wait to see what happens, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoy the ride, and but I don't think I won't be calling you that night that I walk out on stage and I'm like, holy fuck, hey, look at those people. Hey, Jack, there's 100,000 people here. If that happens,
Or 100.
or 100, hey, that's good too.
100 people in a 100-seat room is just as the same as 100,000 in a 100,000-seat room.
Well, hey, yeah, if you got 100 people paying $100 a seat,
Whatever, man. Like when you feel, but the funny part about the expectations of shows is I've had, if everybody who ever told me they were at my show 8 Airs in 1994 or that show at the Varsity Club in Auburn, like I know there were 4 people, but I've had 4,000 people tell me they were there.
Yeah.
Like, we'd have made a lot more money if you. But what I love is the process and the journey and the consistency of it. That when you're out there doing it, and it's just one step at a time, and every step leads to the next step, leads to the next step. And it's funny, it's great to see you in this place where I feel like,
this is really like the first time I've ever done it.
That's what I mean.
You know? And I know definitely what not to do, or at least to have a pretty good guideline. And the whole thing about the openness, man, it's been horrible. My life has been horrible at times. But so have a lot of other people's. I just choose to use my memories and experiences, and as I sort through them, try to help pass along what I learned. That's about it. I've never talked about the stuff that I'm talking about as I get ready for this record to come out. But thank God I am. I mean, thank God I have the ability. Maybe it needs to be talked about once, Edward seems to think that once I get this story out and it's finally done, that I'll be able to move on and because it's told. And I think he might be right. It just kind of feels like
I think the shock and awe value of
it's not really for the shock and awe value, and
it's not
really that's not the reason I am telling these stories or that they're coming out. It's not a shock and awe value. And that was a conversation that some people and I had the other night. This girl was like, well, it's too bad you couldn't, you can't be raped or a transgender or something and throw it out there. She was totally innocently like making a comment about how extreme things are. And I was like, well, to be perfectly honest, it is pretty extreme, but that is not the reason that I chose to tell these stories.
No, that's what I mean. Talking to you, that's kind of what I mean about being open. And you've always been so open, is that when I'm talking to you and you're telling me these stories, and they are outrageous and they're provocative and they're enlightening and they show a lot of your soul, but they're just interwoven into the fabric of who you are. It doesn't feel like shock and awe. I didn't mean that. I meant like, once you tell the story once, you've heard it for the first time in a way, like, and then the next time you tell it, it's more integrated into it. It's just, you never have to hide what you're going to do. It's just telling other people. You'll be able to couch it in different ways because you'll have more of a handle on it of what it is and how it affects people. Because these stories can affect people of like, what the fuck did he just say? Because they're, but
it's true.
It's a part of your story and it's part of your songs. You're not ever going to be the first openly gay anything.
No, it's not necessary.
What you're going to be is the first Waylon Payne who knows exactly who the fuck he is and can consistently go out. And it's not a message of, in my mind, it doesn't seem like a message of, it's not some Oprah Winfrey aha moment or I've survived. It's more like, we all have lives. This is mine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a point of view from a person who's got a point of view.
Yeah. I mean, the other night we were talking and you were halfway through some of these stories and I was like, well, this one time, man, I got this terrible paper cut on my finger and it
really hurt really bad.
Put alcohol on it. I was like, ow, ow.
That's awesome.
Well, hey, man, I don't know what this is, but
Thanks,
it's been
pal.
fun talking with you.
It's been fun talking to you too. I'm gonna go to the restroom now. And 3, 2, 1. Hey, come on, do it. What happened?
Blew that load.
Man.